Hey everybody, welcome to Sunday School. We are so glad that you're here. And if you're here today with your family, that's great. So y'all gather around, or if they're not with you, holler and see if you can get them to come. And we'll worship together this morning. It'll be awesome. So no announcements really, except for something really important, and that is tree news you can use. And remember, park rangers here, foresters here. I love you. And it's funny how today I have this to hug because today's tree news is about tree hugging. Check out this headline from Fox News. This is from last week. It says, Iceland forester rangers encourage citizens to hug trees during quarantine. And so they're encouraging people to hug the trees. And here, there was a funny line in here that I thought was really good. Hug trees, it says, not a friend. That's the message from Iceland forest rangers. And then it says, you get such a good feeling of relaxation from hugging trees, and you are ready for a new day and a new challenge. So how about that? You go hug a tree, you're ready for a new day and a new challenge. So go hug a tree today, and you'll feel a lot better about it. That's your tree news. Don't forget it. All right, time to move on to the lesson now.
Hey guys, go ahead and get your Bible out and turn to Job chapter 2. This is our second week in our series called Loss and Faith. Loss and faith. What we've been talking about is that though we will lose things in life, though we will suffer, it does not mean that we have to lose faith. So this is week 2. What we'll experience today is that we are called by God to keep faith. And we are also empowered by God to keep our faith, even in the most difficult times. So let's recap last week. We could just kind of go through it and read it, and I could tell you. But what's really cool is this week I found actual footage of the news report from the day that this happened 4,000 years ago. So check this out.
Live, local, late breaking. This is BuzzFeed News.
Welcome to BuzzFeed News, your source for all the news in Uz. My name is Anchorman George, and today we have a story about a man named Job. He's had a bad day. I'm telling you, a bad day. As a matter of fact, he has lost some animals. First, the camels. We have an eyewitness. Sir, can you tell us what happened?
Well, shoot, yeah, I saw the camels. They were all standing around in Job's field and minding their own business, and then all of a sudden they just fell over. But, like, you know, not whole, like, into pieces. Like chopped salami, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, they look like an accordion, you know what I'm saying? I was just like, does that happen in nature? Does that even happen in nature? Do they just fall over like that? Sliced? Huh.
What a shame. We also have an eyewitness who saw the sheep die. Ma'am, could you tell us exactly what happened?
Me and Ma was just sitting on the back porch like we always do, and Ma was just rocking, and I was shucking the corn, and all of a sudden, Ma said, well, what in tarnation? And I look over yonder, and all of Job's sheep and shepherds were on fire. And, well, Ma was so shocked, she fell right out of her porch chair and off the back porch. And I just left her laying there because I didn't know what to do. I was just so confused on what was happening. Because all of a sudden they just burst into flame. And I tell you, them poor sheep and the shepherds, they didn't do nothing to nobody. No sheep were good. And Job was a good man. A man of the Lord, and we just didn't know why it was happening to him. Because Job, he was good. He was real, real good. And so were them sheep.
Oh yeah, we were there. We saw the whole thing happen. Debbie, right here, look right there. Yes.
What is that?
Yeah, that is a cat. Talk to it. Yes.
Where?
Okay. Anyway, we saw the whole thing happen. The Sabians, they were plundering and
They're
doing
so
those Hoo-Cha ninja moves.
You're too old to be doing that. Now calm down.
Don't you tell
Take
me
a
what I
sip.
can do. I will do what I would like. Anyway, the poor Job, bless his heart, all his donkey, all his oxen just gone.
They just up
Those
with.
darn Sabians. Oh, bless his heart.
I'm gonna go give him a mint. I just feel so
You
bad.
give him a mint. We saw it happen right over there, but we got away because we have our
I got
walking sticks. But
Georgia, I got him.
yeah, good. Bless his heart.
I got breaking news. We also have a story here that there is a major storm rolling into the area. Let's go to our meteorologist outside. Deaners?
Thanks, George. I'm out here in this terrible weather. Our weather spotters have told us that they have seen a tornado and it's on the ground. The wind is blowing terrible and it's going right towards us. So if you're in that area, you need to seek shelter. It's going right towards Job's Children's Lane. So if you're in that area, seek cover. And back to you in the studio.
Thanks, Deaners, for that special report. That was awesome. Okay, that's the end of the news today, but stay tuned for the next episode of This Is Us.
Man, it's amazing that we found that footage. So, Job 2, verse 1. One day the sons of God came again to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came with them to present himself before the Lord. The Lord asked Satan, "Where have you come from?" "From roaming through the earth," Satan answered him, "and walking around on it." One thing I want to point out is that spiritual warfare is all the way through this book of Job. That's kind of the underlying theme. Satan is still roaming the earth. It says in 1 Peter chapter 5, "Be sober-minded and alert. Your adversary, the devil, is prowling around like a roaring lion, looking for anyone he can devour." Satan wants to destroy you. Satan wants to make you doubt God's goodness. Now look at verse 3. "Then the Lord said to Satan, 'Have you considered my servant Job? No one else on earth is like him, a man of perfect integrity, who fears God and turns away from evil.'" This is what God said about Job in chapter 1. Here's where it changes a little bit. At the end of verse 3, God says, "Job still retains his integrity, even though you, Satan, you incited me against him to destroy him for no good reasons." There's a couple things in there that are really cool. The first thing is God hears our worship. At the end of chapter 1, Job worships God. He praises God. He says, "Blessed be the name of the Lord." And God is in heaven saying, "I saw that." And he's saying, "Satan, did you see that? Job is still praising me." God hears your praise. When you worship him in good times and in bad times, God hears your worship. But look at what Satan says in verse 4. Satan, who is evil, he is the adversary who hates you. He hates Job. He says, "Skin for skin." Doesn't that just sound mean? He's like, no big deal. So Job lost his stuff, but he hasn't suffered physically. So Satan answered, "Skin for sin. A man will give up everything he owns in exchange for his life." Verse 5 says, Satan says, "Stretch out your hand, God, and strike his flesh and bones, and he will surely curse you to your face." So Satan, again, has to ask God's permission to harm Job. Satan says, "Stretch out your hand, God, and strike him." But notice the grace of God and the power of God in verse 6. God says, "Very well, he is in your power. Only spare his life." So for us, like for you, Satan's goal is to get you to stop trusting God. Satan's goal is to either give you so much good stuff that you forget about God, or so much bad stuff that you say, "There's no way God could be real." But here's the good news. God keeps Satan on a leash in Job's life and in your life. There are sins that you have gotten into that could have gone a lot farther, but God protected you. There's some pain that you've been through that could have been a lot worse, but God kept it from being worse because God has a plan, and God is doing all of these things for His glory in our lives. Jimmy, the mute button. I can't hear you. Push it's no.
Okay, how's that? Is that better?
You got to talk louder.
How about now? Has that got it? Okay, so we got that fixed finally, right? So, okay, just to go over real quick, part 1 is in heaven. Job not hearing what they're saying. Thank goodness that he didn't know. And it's kind of a reminder of us that we don't know everything that goes on, what God's doing and stuff. And I've got a verse that kind of talks about that a little bit. It's Matthew 28:20, and this is Jesus talking. And Jesus said, He came to them and said, all authority in heaven and on earth are given to me. And so it's good to know that Jesus has all authority on heaven and earth, even though we don't know what all's going on. Part 2, Job's health. That's what we're getting to now. So he's lost his income, he's lost his children, but he still has his health at this time. And so he's probably asking himself, can things get any worse? And sometimes we ask ourselves that, when things are not going well, when we fail the test or whatever, we're like, can things get any worse? Well, usually they can. And in this case, things are going to get worse for Job. So let's take a look and see what it says. I'm in Job 2. I'm reading 7 and 8. So let me read that. Job 2, 7 and 8. So it says, so Satan went out from the presence of the Lord and afflicted Job with painful sores from the soles of his feet to the top of his head. Then Job took a piece of broken pottery and scraped himself with it and sat down among the ashes. Okay, so here's Job. He has developed these painful sores all over his body. Can you imagine that? From his feet to his head, all over his body are these painful sores. And so can you imagine? You can't even hardly walk. That's going to be painful. You can't do anything with your hands. Your head hurts. Everything's itching or whatever. You've got them all over your face, so you're not looking good either. And so Job he has finally been afflicted of his body. So his health is now being affected. And that's not good. So what does Job do? What I would do is I would want to have some creams and lotions to rub on my sores, right? But Job doesn't have that. So what does he do? He takes a piece of broken pottery. And I didn't have any broken pottery, so I went and smashed one of Dina's pots that she has outside, and I got a piece of pottery.
What?
And so, okay, that's not exactly true. Not true, Dina. So he takes it, and just imagine, so can you see the little sharp edge? It's got a sharp edge. So for whatever reason, his doctoring was that he was scraping these sores. So he's scraping on there, and he's taking care of these sore boils that he has all over his body with a piece of pottery. So the thing I want us to think about here is, in this, there's kind of 3 things in the second verse, or really the whole thing. So first he's got boils, and he's got a broken piece of pottery, and then he also has, he's sitting in ashes. So how does this sound? It sounds like he is in mourning, or he is just broken. He is a broken man, right? It's time now for a commercial break, so take it away.
Hello, my name is Dr. Bertram Orlando Jeremiah, but my friends call me Dr. Baj. Boils are an ulcerative skin condition due to high areas of irritation and friction combined with a minimal amount of personal hygiene. I am here to bring you a new cure for the boil. You can find immediate relief with Baj Balm or Baj Cream. Just ask for it by name, Baj Balm or Baj Cream, found at fine pharmacies and apothecaries nationwide, and just tell them that Dr. Baj sent you.
All right, so part 1 was about heaven. Part 2 is about health and Job's health that fell apart. And part 3 is what we'll read in verse 9 and 10 about Job's wife. Job's wife, said to him, "Are you still holding on to your integrity? Curse God and die." So she quotes both God and Satan in this verse from the earlier scene in heaven. She says, "Are you still holding on to your integrity?" And isn't that neat that those are the same words God said about Job? He said Job is keeping his integrity. But then she quotes Satan too, and she says, "Curse God and die." just what Satan wanted him to do. And notice, Satan had been tormenting Job before, but now he's tempting Job, even through his own wife. He's tempting Job. And it would be easy for us to point the finger at this lady, Job's wife, and say, man, what a loser, right? How evil. But the truth is, you and me are a lot like Job's wife. We're much more like Job's wife than we are like Job. Think of the pain this woman had been through. She had lost all of her kids. She had lost all of their stuff all in one day. They didn't have a future anymore. They didn't have anything they were going to pass on to their kids. They didn't even have kids to pass stuff on to anymore. If that happened to me, if I lost everything in one day, it would break me. It would break you. And we would run to different things. Our first response, I'd love to say my first response would be to run to God, but what we see a lot of times is we run to other things. We run to idols. We run to the idol of comfort. We run to the idol of pleasure. We just want to escape just through endless entertainment or overeating. We run to the idol of control. We can't control our lives, so we try to control it through video games or some other source of feeling like we're in control. Or we run to the idol of credit, where we would say, I deserve better than this. How dare God? Look at all I've done. I've kept my hands clean. I've kept my life clean. How dare you, God? And that's what is happening right here in Job's wife's life. Is she saying, God, Job, give it up. She's probably thinking, like, God, where are you? Like, God, don't you see this? And we can relate with her, can't we? I mean, you can identify with that. You might be thinking the same thing right now. God, don't you see what's going on in my life? It's getting harder every day. I don't see my friends. Or God, don't you see my family and how things are breaking in my family? God, can't you help? Job had lost everything. Job was in constant pain. But in the midst of that, God gave Job faith. God helped Job to keep his faith. And the point of this whole series is loss and faith. That losing does not mean that we have to lose our faith. And it reminds me of that song that came out a few years ago, that the Blessings song that says, what if God's blessings come through raindrops? In my favorite line, it says, what if trials in this life are God's blessings and mercies in disguise? So Job is actively choosing to trust God. And look at the kind way that he speaks to his wife. He's suffering. He's got this sickness all over his body, yet he's kind to his wife. Verse 10, he says, you speak as a foolish woman speaks. He told her. He's like, honey, you don't even sound like yourself right now. He doesn't accuse her. He says, woman, you foolish. He says, honey, you sound like one of the foolish women who don't believe in God. Listen to how you're talking. God is with us. And then he says, should we accept only good from God and not adversity? He says, we've got to receive it all. All of this is from God. We don't understand why, but it's from God, and we need to receive it all as a gift. And then it says, through all of this, Job did not sin in what he said. Satan had thought that he could get Job to go astray. He thought that he could get Job to lead his wife astray as well. But Job kept his faith. God helped Job to keep his faith. Hey, it's time for a quick commercial break.
Hey everybody, I just want to make a quick video and tell you about one of my favorite things. Fudge. That's right, I love fudge, okay? Fudge is awesome. If you love fudge just as much as I do, you need to sign up for Fudge Camp this summer. All you gotta do, call Jacob or call the church office and tell them you want to go to Fudge Camp, because it will be great. There's gonna be fudge rounds, fudge sickles, fudge striped cookies, there's gonna be fudge brownies, hot fudge sundaes, there's gonna be a fudge river, a fudge lake, and my favorite, the most of all, the fudge relay. So if you love fudge, you need to sign up for Fudge Camp. Just call Jacob or call the church office.
Fuge Camp is the actual name of the camp. Dustin says Fudge because he is so tall and airheaded. Fudge will not be present at Fuge Camp. There will only be Fuge.
All right, so we've had heaven, health, that was Job's wife, and now we're going to talk about Job's friends. So let me ask you, what important qualities do you think you should have in being a friend or a friend? And I wrote down a few things. A friend should be helpful, right? In times of need, they would be helpful. They are fun. Friends make life better. And then they're also there for you in hard times. And we're going to kind of see how that works out with Job in this situation. So let's read 11 through 13. So let's get down to the nitty gritty. This is about Job's friends. So here we go. Did you hear that, Dina? I say that all the time. Did you hear that? Okay. 11 through 13. Here we go. When Job's three friends, Eliphaz the Temanite, Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathite, heard about all the troubles that had come upon Job, they set out from their homes and met together by agreement to go and sympathize with Job and comfort him. When they saw him from a distance, they could hardly recognize him. They began to weep aloud, and they tore their robes and sprinkled dust on their heads. Dust on their heads. Then they sat on the ground with him for 7 days and 7 nights. Not one said a word to him because they saw how great his suffering was. So here's the deal. The friends, he's got these three friends. They heard what's going on. They come to see him. So I want to break that down a little bit into friendship and how friends help each other. First of all, they go. And so in verse 11, they go. So let me take a look at that. Verse 11, after I said all the names, they heard about his troubles. They set out from their homes to go and meet and be in agreement, or they were in agreement to sympathize with him and to comfort him. So they went to see him first. This makes me think, back when I was in college, my father passed away, and a lot of my friends lived a far away from where we were at, and they came to the visitation, and that really meant a lot to have somebody travel for a pretty good distance to come and see you when you're in a time of need. And so that's a good thing to do, is to go and see them, And so that's what they did first. Second, that they feel your pain. A good friend feels your pain. And so let's see what they do here. In 12, when they saw him from a distance, they could hardly recognize him, and they began to weep aloud, and they tore their robes and sprinkled dust on their heads. So the whole sprinkling dust on the head, I'd say that's a sign of mourning. But they tore their robes, and you could tell that they really cared about Job, and they were there. They felt his pain with him as well. And so that's a sign of a true friend, is that you really feel when your friends are hurting, you're hurting as well. And we see that with these guys. And then finally, my final point is that they're just there for you, right? So in 13, here's what they did. They sat on the ground with him for 7 days and 7 nights. No one said a word because they saw how great his suffering was. So, man, that's a pretty big deal, right? 7 days and 7 nights, you didn't say a word, but they were just there. And a lot of times, when somebody's suffering, you think, I don't know what to say. What do I say to a person who just lost a family member or something sad, and it's hard to know what to say. And a lot of times you don't have to say anything, but just being there and being with them shows true friendship. So these guys did that. Now later in the chapter, we'll see that they get out of line a little bit because they start talking to Job about his problems and that it was brought on by sin. But, we see that later. But for now, they're good friends to Job.
As we end, I want us to just wrestle with the words that Job said to his wife. He said earlier, should we accept only good from God and not adversity? Think about in your own life. Do you just accept the good things from God? Do you say, yeah, I'm a Christian, I follow you, God, as long as it's easy, but as soon as it's difficult, you say, I'm out? Are you the kind of friend that grieves with people, that sits with them without trying to figure it out for them, but you're there? Are you the kind of spouse that leads your spouse and your kids, your siblings, whoever is in your life? Are you leading them to trust in God more and more? Every time you hear God's word, it's an opportunity for you to make disciples. A true disciple of Jesus is someone who follows Jesus and helps others to follow along. So 2 ways you can make disciples out of this lesson going forward. The first one is there is a discussion guide that you can find on our Facebook and in your email as well, parents, that you can use to go through with your students, with your kids. Students, you can use this with your siblings or maybe your peer group. You'll use this in your Zoom call. So that's the first thing. The second thing is share. Share this video. You can do that through your social media. Just share the link. Or you can share just an insight that you had, something that God taught you. Share that with others. Please continue to make disciples even in this time. Go now in the peace of Jesus Christ, trusting Him in the good and the bad. God bless you.